Well, today we're going to talk about the 5 signs he loves you and he wants to become serious about you. So, I recently got a message on my YouTube comments, and I just want to quickly read it to you. I have to put on my trusty glasses. I should have just memorized it. But it said, I wish I could find a man that will put in as much effort as I do. I wish I could find a man who would put in as much effort as I do. And I recognize that a lot of women feel like they put way more effort into the relationship than men. And I think that's predominantly because throughout history, I mean, literally since Neanderthal days, women on some level have been dependent upon men. In other words, for survival, for protection, for just even, to be fed and whatnot. So and that really goes up until about 50 to 60 years ago. For the most part, women have always been in a codependent relationship with men. So I can understand why, and I'm not saying this is an absolute, this is just an observation I have, but I can understand why many women feel like they put in more effort because in some ways, literally it's biological for them, or it's instinctual, excuse me, that they nurture the relationship more so than men, because men were out there hunting and providing and protecting and that sort of thing, and women were the nurturers. So they oftentimes nurtured the relationship more than the men did. And I know most women would prefer that to not exist. And so I think it's important for women in particular to understand the 3 types of men who are in the active dating pool, the 3 types of men who are in the active dating pool today. Now, again, my channel is for those in midlife, which is after baby making years and before retirement. So most of my audience is between 42 and 69, although a lot of 20 and 30-year-olds watch my content. I just want to differentiate really quickly with the chart I'm about to show you, the 3 types of men in the dating pool. I think it's important to recognize that men in their 20s and early 30s, oftentimes, when they genuinely are on the hunt for the mother of their children, they operate a little bit differently than those in the midlife category, because roughly about 75% of singles over 45 years old are divorced. So it's just, you have to recognize that there is a big difference for those who have gone through divorce versus those that are just in the beginning stage of their life. They're basically like a blank sheet of paper. And yet as we age, we accumulate, we call it baggage, but we accumulate a lot of luggage in our life. And because of this luggage, because of these experiences, oftentimes men fall into these 3 categories. So I want to just show you my newest chart. I tried to print this out, but my printer isn't working. So I want you to see here, it says 3 types of men in the dating pool. And you can see in the first category, it says users. Oh, by the way, really quickly, this is not a fact. It's merely an opinion. And the next category are spenders, and the next category are growers. And I roughly say that users represent about 20% of this scale. Spenders spend 60%, and growers spend about, or excuse me, not spend, are about 60% of the male population, and the growers are 20%. And I'm probably being a little bit generous with the growers. So let's talk about the users for a second. The users are men. They oftentimes come on strong. They're love bombers. They're players. They really are only in the dating process for their own needs being met. I repeat that, they're in the dating process for their own needs being met, which quite frankly, everybody dates from their own perspective first. Men do this, women do this. It's just natural to want to get your needs met. The users are mostly in the need of feeling a bit of superiority and control. And that's why they come on strong, so they can be in control. They're players. They're very suave and charming. They can be in control. And it's usually a short-lived dopamine hit for them. I repeat that, a short-lived dopamine hit for them. In fact, to some degrees, it's very much like the hunting process. You go out and hunt, you catch your food, and then once you've caught the food, the dopamine is over. You went to war, you fought the enemy, and you survived. The dopamine as soon as that's over, and even the seduction of a woman back in caveman days. Because there's this fantasy that men were these, totally chivalrous beings at caveman days. I mean, like, where is that? I mean, not that I've heard that per se, but I feel like ladies have this fantasy about men being ridiculously chivalrous. Look at the Darcys of the world in Pride and Prejudice. That was a fucking movie, and those were noble people. And by the way, noble people could be big time fucking jackasses. Okay, noble people could be big time fucking jackasses. So, and you know, common people oftentimes could have had more class than noble people. Okay, so that's the users. Now, I'm going to talk about the growers for a second. These are men who, and I think I'm being generous when I say it's about 20% of the population, but these are the men who genuinely want commitment with someone. They genuinely want commitment, and they've come to terms that they're ready to take care of someone. I repeat that, they're ready to take care of someone. Now, much like the man in their 20s and 30s, they're seeking a wife. When a man makes that decision to actually say, I'm ready to at least take care of someone or commingle with someone else and build from there, hence why they're called growers and builders, okay? When they reach that mental mindset before they ever date, they operate from a completely different premise. They operate from a place of intentionality. They actually are willing to do the work to actually build the roots for trust. And they're not driven by their penis. They're driven by their heart. Those are the growers. And I know you all women covet that. The reality is you have an 80% chance or greater of meeting the spender or the user. The spenders are men who are seeking connection and companionship and coupling or sex. Okay, connection, companionship, coupling, or sex, without any direction, without any intentionality, without any clear desire of commitment. And while they might say they want a relationship, well, a relationship can be connection, companionship, and sex, but it doesn't necessarily mean commitment. In fact, a lot of men will say, I don't know what I want. Well, and now here's the thing. In this illustration I have, we have the spectrum, okay? So in the spender category, which is probably the highest percentage, where you're probably picking from, they could either be closer to the spectrum of users or they could be closer to the spectrum of growers, okay? Now, this is why I created a private coaching program. By the way, there's a link below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. My whole coaching program is help you to ask the right questions to determine, is he the user, the spender, or the grower? So check out the link for a free discovery call with me. I help you formulate the questions based on your personality, and your genuine desires in relationship, because not every woman wants the same thing. So now you've been doing your work, you're starting to date someone. How can you determine if he genuinely loves you and wants to become serious? Because it's going to either be the growers that are going to want to become serious, or those spenders that are right on the edge of becoming a grower. Those spenders that are, and really it's you that takes them into that next category. And we've talked about that in other videos as well. So the 5 signs, I'm going to put on my trusty glasses. My printer broke right beforehand, so I couldn't pull out my notes, but I have it here. I got on my phone. So how you can tell if he wants to become serious is after you've had sex with a man. And by the way, if you're not familiar with my, now I'm going to go off on a tangent like you all hate when I do, because some people say, Jonathon, get to the point, get to the point. I fucking offer incredibly rich content in the beginning before I actually give the actual clue or the list I have. I don't know why people get so bent out of shape. But it takes about 100 hours of face-to-face time just to build the first layer of trust with a human being. So just remember that it's important to build the friendship with a lot of kissing going on, okay? The friendship with a lot of kissing going on, and invest a good 50, 60, 100 hours of face-to-face time just to build a layer of trust. Now, trust doesn't necessarily always mean fidelity. I mean, it's part of it. We're talking about, can you trust this person cares about your feelings as much as you care about your feelings? That's more critically important. Okay, so coming back to this, you've been dating a guy for a while, you've been having regular sex. How can you tell if he really wants to become serious with you? Well, number one, he makes effort to spend more time with you. The men who actually make effort to spend more time are genuinely like you. They enjoy your company. They want to interact with you. That's a great sign when they're making, like, you in the beginning, you see each other twice a week, and he goes, I want to see you 3 times a week. I want to see you 4 times a week. I want to take you on a trip. I want to spend more time with you. That's a great sign that he loves you and he wants to become more serious with you. Okay. Number 2, he introduces you to family and friends. He introduces you to family and friends. Now, here's the tricky part of this. Some men who are users will actually use that as a tool to demonstrate a level of seriousness. So remember, I said these are signs that you see after you've been in a, you've begun the more serious, or you begin to spend more time with each other. And again, if you've by the way, the users are usually gone in a short period of time. They're not going to make it to 100 hours, most of them. Now, spenders will, the people, and by the way, the reason why I call it spenders, you're spending time with each other. You're not growing and building something together. So I just want you to know that if a guy wants to introduce you to his family and friends really quickly and he's coming on strong, that is not a sign that he wants to become serious. That could merely just be a fake out, okay? And what I mean by fake out, and that shouldn't have warranted a laugh there, but he's pulling the wool over your eyes, or at least be cautious of that. Remember, ladies, men are the gas, you're the brakes, okay? Number 3, he wants to hear about your feelings. He wants to hear how you feel, and he's considerate of your feelings, okay? Ladies, I know you feel a considerable amount of fear sharing your feelings. If you haven't read my book already, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A journey of by the way, there's a link below to Jonathon Recommends Book. This is a journey of personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. Chapter 1, speak your truth, do it with kindness. Chapter 9, if it's sincere and from the heart, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. So if a man genuinely wants to hear about your feelings and he's considerate of your feelings, that's a great sign. That's a great sign. Don't be afraid to speak up. It's that fear that oftentimes is the block, because that fear of speaking your truth is the wall between the two of you. Ladies, I encourage you to lean into your feelings. Now, you don't vomit your feelings. You don't vomit insecurities and fears, but you express how you feel about each other. But Jonathon, I'm just supposed to sit back in my feminine energy and let him claim me. Folks, I do that joke because that is such nonsense. I'm here about recommending empowered energy, not masculine and feminine energy. If you're not familiar with the book, If the Buddha Dated, I highly recommend checking this out. This book, it throws out the bullshit gender rhetorics that you've heard for, throughout history. Throw out the bullshit gender rhetoric and start connecting at a heart center level. You will actually, by doing so, you're actually creating the neurons of deeper love with a man when you can approach it from a heart-centered space instead of a fear-based centered space. Number 4, he apologizes if there's any misunderstanding or conflict. He doesn't get defensive. He apologizes if there's any, in other words, if there's conflict, he doesn't get defensive. That's the main thing. If there's friction between the two of you, he doesn't get defensive. Okay. Men who get defensive, women who now it's natural to want to defend oneself, but if there is some issue between the two of you, he wants to solve the problem. Okay. He knows how to fight fair. Fighting fair means he listens to your point of view and he accepts your point of view as being true for you, and you do the same for him. Okay. By the way, ladies, you're just as bad at this process. The emotional maturity level and relationship skills level for men and women can be equally as bad. And by the way, I finally did create a new chart. Okay, my emotional maturity relationship skills chart. Okay, you can see I roughly say about 20% of the population is clinical issues. These are people that sadly could be sociopaths, could be narcissists. They might have borderline personality. People that have bipolar are actually can with medication work on that, but they have clinical issues. Doesn't mean that, by the way, this is not a fact. It's merely an opinion. And while I say 20% of the population has healthy relationship skills and emotional maturity, I'm being ridiculously generous with that percentage because the vast majority are dysfunctional. Hence why the users, the spenders, and the growers, okay? And this is women as well. There are user women, there are spender women, and there are grower women. All of you ladies think you're growers. This is why, folks, sometimes when I yell at women, I get some complaints from many of you, or for some of you, I should say, that I'm being abusive to women. When I yell, it's because I'm yelling at delusional thinking, hypocrisy, and victim consciousness. Let me repeat that: delusional thinking, hypocrisy, and victim consciousness. And quite frankly, when I'm yelling at myself because I can be delusional, I can be hypocritical, and I can be in victim consciousness. This is the dysfunctionality of us human beings. The dysfunctional relationship skills are people that get defensive, those people that stonewall in relationship, those that are critical, and those that have contempt, just to name a few. And then let's not even get into the abandonment and fear and trust issues people have. That's where the dysfunctionality comes from. How does it happen? Childhood wounds and traumas and adult traumas that have gone unhealed. Childhood wounds and traumas and adult traumas that have gone unhealed. If you're not familiar with the book, The Hoffman Process, this is a deep dive into healing those wounds, because the reality is I don't care if you've had the most amazing parents in your life, and believe me, those don't exist. Okay? Even people that had relatively happy childhood can have significant dysfunction that happened in their childhood. So this is the delusional piece that everybody thinks they're better. This, by the way, we operate from a specialness here in the United States, especially here in the United States, that each person thinks that they're better than someone else. In other words, that they don't need the work. I'm already perfect just the way I am. Now, I know you have all these fears that's in there as well, but there's this delusion that, oh, the men need the work, the men need the work, the men need the work. Well, they don't see those three fingers pointing back at them. That's why I yell and I scream. And it's just to be the wake-up call. It's kind of reaching your primal place in your life, that primal place in your life where you go, fuck it, snap out of it. Just like Cher said to Nicolas Cage in Moonstruck, snap out of it. And that's why I yell. Okay. Number 5, he progresses the relationship forward, meaning you're not feeling doubt. The truth is, when you're with a man who loves you and wants to become serious, you're not feeling doubt. You don't even need to watch this video when you're with that guy, because you're already experiencing a level of trust. And trust, again, is you care about each other's feelings as much as you care about your own feelings. That is deep trust. So, what's the solution for all of this, folks? Stop being naive to some fantasy way of dating, this lean back in your feminine and let the man be chivalrous. We are dealing with so much dysfunctionality. And at the same time, there are growers out there, and there are those men who are spenders that just need a little bit of a push. And if you need some help with that, reach out to me, because that's my area of expertise. So just to remind you, those 5 signs he loves you and wants to become serious. He makes effort to spend more time with you. He introduces you to family and friends. He wants to hear how you feel, and he's considerate of your feelings. He apologizes if there's misunderstandings or conflicts, and he progresses the relationship forward, meaning you're not feeling doubt. By the way, this is my teddy bear, and it actually was a gift from a client of mine, and it has a crystal heart sewn inside inside of here. So what a very special gift. By the way, this is not my bedroom. This is actually my couch. Many of you might notice that I'm in a new setting today, so I thought I'd mix it up today. My coffee mug says, I don't want to work anymore. I just want to be cherished, put up on a pedestal, and taken care of. So before we take questions today, by the way, did this make sense? Did this resonate with you? If it did, write the words amen. That lets me know that the topic portion of this video has or even say this made a difference in my life. You're making a difference. Amen. Please let me know in the comments. And certainly I'm going to do my best. Now, this is the Q&A portion of it. During the Q&A portion, I'd like you to write the word question. And oh, by the way, before I go any further, if this content resonates with you, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please hit that bell. Please post a comment. I'd really be grateful. Please share this with friends. Okay. If you have a question, post the word question, write the word question, write the question there after, or you can purchase a super sticker, super chat. There's a little $ in the chat box for those that are listening to the live stream of this. If you're listening to that replay or listening to the audio, you won't be able to see that. In that $, all the monies from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Aslay. That's a picture of Connor right there. Oh, that's Connor right there. He's my son who passed away. I can't believe it's coming on 4 years. 4 years ago, he passed away. And in his honor, I donate to charities like the Hoffman Process and Insight Seminars. So I'd be truly grateful if you would support that scholarship fund in his name. So thank you so much. So let's start looking at questions. Oh, I see a lot of amens and resonating. Amen, resonating. Apologizing is huge. Don't we all? Coffee cup. By the way, this might sound narcissistic. This was a gift to me. So I love these That's All mugs. You can go on Amazon and find them, but they don't have too many left. I think I bought them all. If anyone wants to buy me a new one, I'd be so grateful. Send it to my office. I do appreciate all the gifts. So let's see if we have any questions. Oh, Liz says, the yelling is genuine. And like you say, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. I also say you can't say yell for emphasis wrongly to a crowd. Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you so much. Gray is one of my favorite colors. I don't know what that means. You have made a difference in my life. You've helped me understand what a healthy relationship is. Amen. All right, we have our first question. Question. Do you think you have to be in love with each other before having sex? No, you don't have to do anything. So no, you don't. I don't believe you have to. Where's my other pillow? Hold on a second. I don't think you have to be in love with each other, but I certainly think before having sex, I think it's important to define what it is you're both looking for. Be radically honest with each other. And the hard part is when a man says, I'm looking for a relationship, well, what the fuck does that mean? So let me tell you what a relationship looks like for me to illustrate this. I'm looking for a relationship where we spend 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in our personal and professional life. Did I say traveling? Intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to either moving in together or getting married. That's what I want. It's crystal clear. So let's just assume you say, I want a relationship, and it means that. And a man says, I want a relationship, but he hasn't stated what it means. So in his mind, he's like, well, I want to see her at my beck and call. I want to have sex when we get together. And, I might, I'm just going to, those are the main 2 things I want. That's a relationship. If you don't define what a relationship is, then how do you know you're right for each other? How do you know you're right for each other? So this is why you guys are so fucking clueless. This is why I say I'm sorry to judge cluelessness, but you are. Before the penis goes inside the vagina, read the book 8 Dates by Drs. John and Julie Gottman. That's what you do before you have sex. You read this fucking book. And I got to tell you, I have women writing me over and over again telling me how this is making a difference in their life. So don't be naive to this, because the reality is these days we're meeting strangers. Check out this book, Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. We're meeting strangers. We don't know about their values. We don't know about their lifestyle. We don't know their emotional maturity. So don't focus on love. Focus on getting to know each other. So I'm going to change gears for a second here. And I'm going to share something personal with y'all. Y'all, I'm not Southern, but I just felt like saying that. So about 3 months ago, I met a woman through Instagram, and then I saw her on a dating app, and we exchanged phone numbers. And so she'd been following me on Instagram. We exchanged phone numbers. She lived like 12, 13 miles from me here in Los Angeles. And we got on the phone, and she had mentioned right up front that she was moving to Utah. So she was actually going to be doing searching in Utah. But we had this mutual interest. She's really into spirituality. So she turned me on to 2 podcasts. Mark Groves podcast. Can someone write down Mark Groves right now in the comments in the chat box? Mark Groves, Groves podcast. Also another podcast called Spiritually Hungry. Michael and Matthew Berg, or Monica Berg. Michael and Monica Berg, Spiritually Hungry. I love these podcasts. Oh my God. These are brilliant human beings. So much wealth, so much. If you really want to change your life, start listening to them along with me. Check out the links below. Don't forget to subscribe. So she turned me on to these podcasts, and then we had these interesting conversations about them. So this was about 3 months ago. And one night I called her up and said, hey, do you want to go out to dinner this weekend just to hang out? I just want some really good company. So we hung out, and she's very attractive, and we went out to a nice restaurant. My treat. I just wanted to, I was in a generous spoiling mode. And we went out to dinner in Santa Monica, or West Hollywood, excuse me, off of Santa Monica Boulevard. And then afterwards, we didn't talk much. And then she reached out to me a week later to tell me that about a man she'd been dating, and she wanted some dating advice. So I gave it to her because we put each other in the friend zone. And she was going through a love bomber. This guy love bombed, and then he pulled away. Love bombed and pulled away. And so we started talking on a regular basis, sometimes a couple times a day. And this has been going on for 3 months. I'm sharing all this with you and we've talked about being in a romantic relationship. First off, she now lives in Utah, and I don't think we're a fit for each other, but we really have developed a really good, rich friendship with each other. We talk to each other in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes in the evening. She turned me on to an app called Trip, TRIPP. It's a meditation app I can use with my Oculus. Okay, why am I telling all of this? I realized that what my soul yearns for is that person I can talk to have those rich conversations, that person that I just enjoy talking with. Now, I don't believe we can build a relationship over the phone, a romantic relationship, because it requires doing social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together. That's how you build a romantic relationship. But what I realize in this friendship is what the missing piece I've been looking for my entire life. I don't think I've ever been in a relationship with someone where the friendship is so rich, but from a sapiosexual perspective. In other words, it's her intellect. She's got a brilliant mind. She's got wisdom. She's a Kabbalist. I mean, she's got a breadth of uniqueness to her. And so I feel like the universe brought her into my life so I can feel what that feels like without all the pressure and the emotional responsibility of a relationship. So why am I sharing this with you? How do you know what an amazing relationship looks like if you've never had an amazing relationship? I don't think I've ever had an amazing relationship. I've had relationships. I was married. But in retrospect, compared to what my heart yearns for, it doesn't even come close to what I'm experiencing with this person right now. Oh, and our little kids play with each other. I mean, she has a little kid personality. I have a little kid personality. We bump heads with each other. It's actually what I love about her is our little kids get together. So my point in sharing this, many of you ask, why am I still single? It's because I feel like I needed to rewire myself these past decade and a half. Been going through some Herculean work, tons of, the Hoffman process, insight seminars. This was after losing my $250,000 a year job, after being hooked on drugs and alcohol. I had to dig myself out of the tunnel and rebuild my life. And I feel like I've been reparenting myself this whole time. And why I share this with you, it doesn't matter whether or not you find the man of your dreams, because the most important thing is finding the love within yourself. And when Connor passed away, it gave me the opportunity to rewire loving on myself. And now I feel like the universe is just bringing more clues, not clues, but evidence that it's literally right around the corner. So I invite you all to keep your eyes wide open and open your heart. Be open and receptive to love. And it starts by opening your individual heart. And maybe many of you need to heal those childhood wounds and adult traumas to actually make it happen. So thank you for allowing me to share there. I really appreciate it. By the way, I want to thank Irma for the $20 super sticker. Thank you so much. I want to thank, I saw JM Cole for the $2.99 super sticker. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let's see what you have to say about here really quickly. I'm going to point out Mark Groves' podcast. Check it out. And then also, for those watching, the Spiritually Hungry podcast. I love this. This is Kabbalah. Kabbalah is mystic Judaism. I mean, it is so fucking cool. I mean, I'd love to do mushrooms with these guys. By the way, the friend I'm speaking of, we actually have hung out a couple times and we did a mushroom journey, and boy, or psilocybin journey, I should say. And boy, our little kids got to play together. It was so much fun to connect at that little. Do you know what? Here's the thing. When you see a boy and girl playing, or boys playing and girls playing, there's just nothing more magical in my mind are those folks that play together. I feel like that's what's missing in most relationships today. That honest place of play. That's why I love my friend. We play together in the sandbox, just in the way we banter with each other and we fuck with each other. It's like, I realize now that's been the missing piece for me. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but if it feels like it does, I invite you to attract in. Dear God, universe, and spirit. God, universe, spirit. Gus. I invite in romantic love in my life. I open my heart to romantic love. I do the work to heal each and every day, to forgive myself for my foibles, my judgments, my resentments, my guilt, my shame. And I work on it every day as an invitation to invite in a partner who is also doing the inner work, that wants to play in the sandbox together, where our little kids and our adult at the same time can play together. And especially that juicy, delicious part where we get to fuck each other's brains out on a regular basis. I invite that in. And God, I ask for that invitation. I invite that in my life, and I ask you to make that happen. That's a short prayer I have for all of you. Will you say, Jonathan, I'm going to write a prayer tonight in the chat box? I'd really appreciate it. All right, let's keep going. Kimberly says, have you brought your request for a partner in front of the Lord to manifest right partner for you? Oh, well, you just heard it. By the way, I am a believer of God, universe, and spirit, and I've got an amazing relationship with God, universe, and spirit. I'm so grateful for that. So thank you, Kimberly. Let's go swimming. All right. All right. So if you have a question, don't forget to post a question or purchase a super sticker, super chat. All right. Or we're going to be wrapping this up quickly. I see an oh my amen, Jonathan. Amen. And a heart. Thank you so much. Folks, listen, there's nothing easy about this. We have to remove layers upon layers upon layers of shit that's been built up in our life. And I invite everyone to do the individual work so you can actually know what it feels like. Because when you actually love on yourself, you actually invite in great love in your life. You do. That's at least you'll be able to recognize it much quicker than the old way of doing things. All right. Doesn't look like we have any questions. If you have a question for me, post the word question and write the question thereafter. I'm going to wait a minute. If you have a personal question of me, write the personal question and then write the question thereafter. I'm going to give it about 1 more minute or we're going to be wrapping up. Oh, here we go. Heather. Heather, my dear. Question. I'm starting to feel that a lot of men feel undervalued and unappreciated because women can be financially stable on their own. Should we help them find their other values? So I don't believe that women's financial stability, I think it's a plus in a relationship because as we age, especially for the men who've gone through divorce, they're paying alimony, child support, visitation rights, or not visitation rights, alimony and support and whatnot. So, and by the way, 80% of the US population makes less than $100,000 a year. So a financially stable woman is an asset to a man. It's a controlling woman that is not very attractive to a man. Women, because of their financial success, they feel like they can control, just like men have controlled throughout history. I think money creates, control freaks. So by the way, so you have to decide rather than the values is where do they play together? Where do they play together? Where do they play together? My friend I was telling you about, the one who lives in Utah, she went on a date. She's gone on 4 dates with a man. Their first 2 dates were bowling. The third date was ping pong. Actually, the 4th date is tomorrow night. So bowling twice and ping pong. She said she had a great time with this guy. I'm really happy for her. Do I think it's really going to be the one? I don't know yet. She doesn't even know yet. She's coming off of a love bomber that kind of scarred her a little bit. But my point is, she's playing with the guy. That's, the values. Look at values is, do you share the same political point of view? Do you share the same religious point of view? Do you share the same view on vaccines and masks? If you have those 3, you probably got 80% of your values covered. All right, Heather, thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate it. Heather says, as a follow-up, I guess I've been watching too many incel and feminist videos. It seems like there are a lot of controlling women who don't give men the respect they should. Now, here's the thing. You're talking about a younger generation. Incel stands for involuntarily celibate. And yes, there are the younger generation of women can be incredibly controlling. And the midlife women. The thing is, as women age, they tend to become more desperate. I'm sorry. It just happens. I mean, that's my perception. I'm not saying it's a fact, but they tend to be more desperate. They tend to be more agreeable and more accommodating. This is why a lot of women in midlife are more like doormats than they are the bitch. And I don't mean the men love bitches like in the good sense. I mean that in the pain in the ass kind of sense. So and feminists, okay, there's 2 types of feminists. The woman who believes in genuine equality of outcome, and then there's the feminists that just hate men, okay? I'm attracted to the feminist who believes in equality of outcome, not the hatred of men. I'm not saying all feminists, it's just my observation of them. All right, thank you so much for that question. I saw that Teresa said, question, why do men prefer men than women? Are you asking why do men prefer, are you talking about gay men? I don't understand the question. Lee Hong says, why do men reject rejection harshly? Listen, if you're a man, if you've asked a woman out and you've been rejected and you ask another woman out and get rejected, after a while that wears on your self-esteem. Let's have some compassion for that. By the way, ladies, if you've ever been rejected, doesn't that feel horrible? Doesn't that feel horrible to get rejected? Isn't it natural to feel a sense of anger when you've been rejected? So let's have compassion for men and women instead of, you know, what'd you say? Let's have compassion for what they've experienced, is all. Okay. Lee says, question. Do you think a man's online dating profile is a good indication of his emotional maturity? So many of them are scant and minimal at best. Great question. So, as a man, I'm on the dating sites and I look at women's profiles every day. And I think to myself, is this the fucking best you women can do? I'm sorry, I'm saying women. That sounds like a judgment. Is this the best you can fucking do? I'm going to tell you, women's profiles are just as fucking shitty as men. 97% of profiles are crap. Let me tell you why. Ambivalence, indifference, and incompetence. Ambivalence, indifference, incompetence. The people who put shitty profiles, in my mind, aren't worthy. They're not worthy of a relationship with me. Let's put it that way. Now that might be a judgment. I'm not saying these aren't good people. Okay. The men and women who have shitty profiles, they can be good people. But if you're that fucking unconscious that the presentation you put out of yourself, and ladies, you were just as fucking bad at this as men. Okay. But if that presentation is so fucking mediocre, then how competent are you going to be in a relationship? Just because you want a relationship, it's like going to work and and you don't even know how to, spell. I mean, I'm sorry, you work as a typist and you don't know how to, you go as a job as a typist and you don't even know how to spell, you don't know how to use a keyboard, and you're expecting to get paid. That's the way a lot of men and women operate. You're so fucking delusional. And I'm yelling because I can't stand delusional thinking, hypocrisy, and victim consciousness. So there, I said it. So why, or what is it? The question? Yes, I do think women and men's profiles that are crappy are a great indication of how fucking disillusioned, incompetent, and what was the other word I said? Ambivalent they are. Okay, thank you so much. All right, let's keep going. Here, Don says, that is so wrong. Men should not have to always pay. I'm just going to jump in this conversation. Listen, when I shared the story of taking that female friend out for dinner, I said right up front before we went out, I said, I'm going to pay, because I wanted to come from a place of generosity. It was just a friend. I believe that the idea of men should pay is an old, outdated idea, especially now that women can make as much or in depth more than any individual man that they go out with. Forgetting the collective, if you're a woman who makes $150,000 a year and you're with a man who makes $120,000 a year, you can make more than a man, number one. Paying for a date is not a man's responsibility. There, I said it. Now, if he was raised the way I was raised, it's an expectation for us to do it. But I don't like that it's an expectation. I don't like that, because it's not coming from a place of generosity. It's not coming from a place of my heart. It's coming from any woman who expects it, in my mind, is a taker if she expects it. Now, we can all say, well, Jonathon, men do the asking out. Well, when you're meeting someone online for the first time and the guy takes the initiative, that's not really asking you out on a date. That's basically saying, I want to meet you. Let's get together. So I would prefer that human beings in the beginning stages take turns. Man picks up the tab the first time. The woman picks up the tab the next time. He picks up the tab the next time. She picks up the tab. And after you've gone on 3 or 4 or 5 dates, depending on who makes the most money, the person who makes the most should contribute the most to the entertainment. It is now, some of you women will say, Jonathon, we women spend all this money getting dressed up for a date. Ladies, when you're meeting a guy for the first time, are you dropping a couple $100 on your outfit, your hair and everything? And if you are, that's on you. That's not on him. What about the $80,000 education he had to pay for? What about the $80,000 car he had to pay for? I'm just throwing in shit like that. And when you go out with your girlfriends all dressed up, Do you make your girlfriend pay when you go out and night out in the town? No. So why should that be a man's responsibility? That narrative fucking drives me nuts. Okay. And for the woman who might not like what I'm saying, or any of the women, you don't have to follow my channel. These are just my thoughts, my perceptions, my opinions. By no means do I suggest this is the truth. You have to decide the truth for yourself. I'm a bit of a contrarian. My advice goes contrary to public opinion and traditional expectations. I would prefer women and men take turns in the beginning stages and then having a serious conversation about it. By the way, in the book 8 Dates by Drs. John and Julie Gottman, talking about money is a really fucking important conversation. But you guys are so fucking naive to this shit. It's important to talk about this stuff. Because here's the bottom line. Do you know the number one cause for divorce is money? And to go in there cavalierly and naively is ridiculous. And by the way, I'm speaking to the men here too. Any men watching this? So I'm not talking about splitting the bill on the first date for anyone who might say that, although I think it's very generous when a woman says, hey, I could like to pick up the valet. I'd like to pick up the tip. I'd like to pick up the ice cream afterwards. Demonstrate that you're actually a contributor instead of a taker, because there are a lot of women out there that are takers and a lot of women who don't by the way, there's takers and then there are women who don't show appreciation. A lot of men, like myself included, I can't tell you how many countless dates I've been on where I didn't feel appreciated that I picked up the tab. You know, I did that out of generosity. I mean, well, quite frankly, I did it out of expectation. A man should never do, by the way, should a man expect sex from you? Would you, if a man said, well, I paid for a date, I expect you to suck my cock. How would you feel if that was the expectation? You'd say, fuck off, dude. Well, that's how it might feel to us if you expect it from us. All right, I went off. I'll probably lose some subscribers right as I speak, but I think it was an important conversation to have. Does anyone agree with me? Say, Jonathan, I agree with what you said about paying for dates. I agree with what you said about paying for dates. Please let me know. Okay. All right. You know what? Kit Kat says most men do expect sex regardless of paying for dates. And that's, by the way, that's asinine to expect sex, just like expecting sex or expecting men to pay. AM says, I agree with Jonathan. Janet says, I agree with Jonathan. Well, you didn't say Jonathan. Jennifer says, I love your rants. It made me LOL. Thank you so much. Jennifer says, I agree. Oh, you said that. Thank you. All right. Kit Kat says, I agree with you. Thank you so much. Folks. Oh, Arlene says, I believe in contributing only when I see there is effort on their part. Again, that's an expectation, Arlene. What about the effort? Where's the effort on your part? What effort are you showing a man? By the way, that's the key piece, because there's a bit of entitlement with that comment. You know, there's a bit of entitlement. I need to see effort. Well, what effort are you giving? Folks, I got to tell you, people are takers in the early stages. Women are just as bad as men. So I want to call you out on that one. By the way, I say this with a lot of love, a lot of reverence, a lot of care, but I'm just letting you know, what effort do you demonstrate? And then again, and I'm all in favor of investment and effort and see if it's matched. But what are you doing in the first date to demonstrate effort? You just showed up. Is that effort? He shows up. Okay. WVE says, I agree. Watch me pole dance. True feminism is good for both men and women. What hurts women hurts men, and vice versa. I agree. Deborah says, I agree with what you say about paying for dates. Mary says, I agree with you said for paying for dates. Thank you. Joan says, I love it when you go off. I agree with what you said about paying for dates. Needed to be said. Thank you so much. Kimberly says, I agree. I've been taken before and it feels terrible to be used. Exactly. Kit Kat says, Jonathan says it how it is. Amen. Oh, I love it. Linda says, I'm old school and I don't agree. Well, I hope it's working. By the way, folks, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Just remember, the number one cause for breakups or divorces is money. Daniela says, I agree with what you said about paying for dates. I really do. I want to tell you, I perceive your genuine advice. Thank you so much. Janet says, I'm retired and I always pay or pay. I always pay or pay. Thank you. All right. This will be, I think, our last question today from Pamela. Question: sometimes women do not have careers and means to make money following a divorce. What is your advice in those cases? Well, are you saying that they can't take care of themselves and they need someone to support them? Or they just, because then you might as well take whatever man's willing to pay your bills. Okay. But if you can support yourself, that's the most important thing. If you can support yourself and take care of, small little, by the way, if a man makes 150 grand a year and you make 50 grand a year, you're barely covering your expenses. That guy's going to want to, if he genuinely likes you and cares about you, then it's not about, listen, I'm saying the early stages. This is the first 3 or 4 or 5 dates. It's not a man's responsibility, because here's the problem. When a man always pays, it gives him permission to be a fucking dickhead to you. Just remember that, okay? He can be a fucking controlling asshole, because that's what it generally is. Or not generally is. It can be. So just remember that. If you can take care of yourself, that's all that matters. All right. This got into an interesting discussion. Heather says, oh my God, it takes 50 grand to cover expenses. I must be living way cheap. Well, what I meant was, if you make 50 grand a year after taxes, it's 38. And then you've got your mortgage, or your rent, that's 24,000 a year. It leaves you $12,000 a year for food and entertainment, car and gas. Maybe taxes isn't that much. I'm sorry. I was thinking of my bracket. But, it could, 50 grand doesn't go a long way here in the United States. Folks, I went on a big time rant here. I hope you found value even on that last rant about them who pays for dates, because it's a sore subject for me. I have felt so unappreciated by women that I feel that parity is a better way to approach it. That's just my 2 cents. By the way, how do you feel about my location here today to do this? It's a little bit struggling on my back a little bit. So I'll say a little wearing on my back. So I'm going to go back to my old location. But what did you think of this? Okay. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. All right. Before we wrap up today, I'd love a super sticker, super chat for the Connor Aslay Scholarship Fund. We'd like to give away some money. I hope you found value in this. If you'd like to schedule a discovery call with me, please hit the button below. Check out the books I recommend. Check out my podcast, my new podcast called Relationships Are Underrated with Trip Kramer. I'll post a link there below. All right, I think this will be a great place to wrap up today with my teddy bear. First off, I'm going to give myself a big, gigantic Jonathon bear hug of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love, if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, this teddy bear, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to thank Kit Kat and Pamela, Couch Therapy. Thanks. Lovely Arlene and Renee and Jamie and Rose and Janet and Heather and Danielle, Watch Me Pole Dance, FL, Ima, Rihanna, Pamela. Thank you all so much. Wishing you a fabulous evening. Bye-bye now. Couch Therapy with Jonathon. I love it, love it, love it.